It was late in the evening when I sat down at my old creaky desk, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. The memories of my years as a detective in Hollywood during the 70s often visited me, unbidden, like ghosts of a past that refused to be forgotten. But there was one case, in particular, that lingered in my mind more persistently than the rest. It was a case that had never found its resolution, a story without an end, a mystery that continued to haunt me even in retirement. Hollywood in the 1970s was a different beast altogether. It was a time of extravagant parties, of big dreams and even bigger disappointments, a place where the line between reality and make-believe often blurred. The stars shone bright in the Los Angeles sky, but none shone brighter than Evelyn St. Clair. She was the epitome of a Hollywood success story, rising from obscurity to become the darling of the silver screen. Yet, beneath the surface of her glittering facade, there was a darkness, a sense of impending doom that followed her like a shadow. I remember the night it all began. A call had come through in the early hours of the morning, shattering the quiet of the night. There had been a shooting at one of those high-profile Hollywood parties, and the victim was none other than Evelyn herself. The news sent shockwaves through the city, and as I drove down the palm-lined streets to the crime scene, I couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. It was as if the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. As I arrived at the scene, the chaos was palpable. Flashing police lights cut through the darkness, illuminating the panicked faces of the partygoers. Evelyn had been rushed to the hospital, her condition critical, and the shooter was nowhere to be found. It was my job to piece together the puzzle, to delve into the underbelly of Hollywood's glitz and glamour, and uncover the truth. But little did I know, this case would take me on a journey through the darkest corners of fame and fortune, a journey that would forever change my perception of the City of Stars. This is the story of that journey, of the case that remains etched in my memory as vividly as if it happened yesterday. It's a story of greed, betrayal, and the perils of fame. It's a story that reveals the darkness lurking behind the bright lights of Hollywood, a darkness that consumes everything in its path. Welcome to the last curtain call. The Hollywood of the 1970s was a mesmerizing mix of reality and fantasy, a place where dreams could come true overnight and just as quickly turn into nightmares. The streets were lined with the palatial homes of movie stars, directors, and producers, the gods and goddesses of the silver screen, worshipped by millions across the globe. At the heart of it all was the Sunset Strip, pulsating with life, its clubs and bars filled with the who's who of the entertainment world. Evelyn St. Clair was the newest addition to this pantheon of stars. Her rise to fame was the stuff of legend. Discovered in a small diner in the Midwest, she had the kind of beauty that stopped people in their tracks, a radiant smile, sparkling eyes, and a presence that commanded attention. She wasn't just an actress, she was a phenomenon. Within a year of her arrival in Hollywood, she had starred in 2 blockbuster films and had been nominated for an Oscar. The press adored her, and so did the public. But I knew that the bright lights of Hollywood often cast the deepest shadows. I remember the first time I saw her. She was walking down the red carpet at a movie premiere, the flashbulbs of the paparazzi creating a strobe effect around her. She smiled and waved, but her eyes betrayed a hint of something else, fear, perhaps, or maybe it was just the overwhelming nature of her rapid ascent to fame. It was hard to tell. Stars like Evelyn were skilled at wearing masks, hiding their true selves from the prying eyes of the public. As I dug deeper into her background for the investigation, I learned that she was more than just a pretty face. She was fiercely ambitious, determined to leave her mark on the world. But with each step up the ladder of success, she had made enemies. Rival actresses, jealous of her rapid rise, whispered rumors about her. Studio executives, who had tried and failed to control her, resented her independence. And then there were the fans, some a little too obsessed, a little too willing to do anything to get close to her. It was in this glittering, treacherous world that the tragedy struck. The party where the shooting occurred was at the mansion of a famous director, a lavish affair attended by the elite of Hollywood. The guests were a mix of actors, producers, and other industry bigwigs, all there to see and be seen. It was supposed to be a night of celebration, but it ended in horror. The news of the shooting spread like wildfire. By the time I arrived at the scene, the party had turned into a crime scene. The guests were either in shock or desperately trying to leave, their expressions a mix of fear and confusion. The police had cordoned off the area, and the detectives were already at work, trying to piece together what had happened. As I stepped into the mansion, I could feel the weight of the mystery that lay ahead. Who would want to harm Evelyn St. Clair? And why? The answers to these questions were buried deep in the heart of Hollywood, and it was my job to unearth them. The investigation was about to begin, and I had no idea where it would lead me or what secrets I would uncover along the way. The night of the shooting was one that would forever be etched in Hollywood's history, a stark reminder that beneath the glitter and glamour lay a world fraught with peril. The party was at the luxurious hillside mansion of Douglas Fairbanks Jr., a director known as much for his extravagant lifestyle as for his box office hits. The creme de la creme of Hollywood had gathered there, a swirling mass of tuxedos and designer gowns, laughter and clinking glasses, a living tableau of the excesses of showbiz. Evelyn St. Clair was the belle of the ball, enchanting and radiant. She moved through the crowd with an effortless grace, her laughter ringing clear. Yet, as I learned later through interviews, there was an undercurrent of tension noticeable to those who knew her well. She seemed on edge, her smiles a bit too strained, her glances over her shoulder a bit too frequent. As midnight approached, the party was in full swing. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the smoky haze of cigars. Music filled the halls, a lively jazz band playing the hits of the day. It was then that the unimaginable happened. A series of loud cracks tore through the melody, stark and jarring. Screams followed, piercing the festive atmosphere like a siren's wail. In the chaos that ensued, Evelyn was found lying on the floor in a secluded corner of the garden, a pool of blood spreading beneath her. The guests were thrown into a panic, a frenzied rush to safety that turned the lavish party into a scene of mayhem. The shooter had vanished into the night, leaving behind a trail of shock and disbelief. The police arrived swiftly, their sirens cutting through the night. The mansion was soon swarming with officers and detectives, cordoning off the scene, securing witnesses. As I made my way through the crowd, I could sense the fear and confusion in their eyes. Hollywood, for all its stories of make-believe, was not immune to the brutal realities of life. Evelyn was rushed to the hospital, her condition critical. The doctors fought through the night to save her, but the wounds were severe. The news of her shooting spread like a wildfire, dominating the headlines. The city was in shock. How could such a bright star be so cruelly shot down at the pinnacle of her career? As I began the investigation, the questions loomed large. Who could have done this? Was it a personal vendetta, a professional rivalry, or something more sinister? The list of potential suspects was as long as it was complex. Disgruntled colleagues, jealous rivals, obsessed fans, even the shadowy figures of the underworld that lurked beneath Hollywood's glossy surface. The party had been full of people, yet no one had seen the shooter. It was as if the assailant had materialized out of thin air, struck, and then vanished just as quickly. The lack of eyewitnesses was baffling. It was clear that this was no random act of violence, it was targeted, deliberate. But the motive remained shrouded in mystery. As I combed through the evidence, interviewing guests and sifting through the testimonies, I realized that this case was more than just a whodunit. It was a labyrinth of secrets and lies, a journey into the dark heart of fame and fortune. And as I delved deeper into the investigation, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was only the beginning, that what lay ahead was a path fraught with danger and revelations that could shake the very foundations of Hollywood. The night everything changed was just the start. The case of Evelyn St. Clair was going to take me into uncharted territories, into a world where the bright lights cast long shadows, and every smile hid a secret. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back. The morning after the shooting, the city of Los Angeles awoke to a state of disbelief. I started with the basics, visiting the crime scene once more in the cold light of day. The mansion, which had been a hub of festivity just hours ago, now stood silent, its opulence overshadowed by the grim reality of the investigation. The garden where Evelyn was found was cordoned off with yellow tape, a stark contrast to the lush greenery and vibrant flowers. As I walked through the scene, I noted every detail. The position of the body, the distance of the spent bullet casings, the lack of any immediate signs of a struggle. The initial findings were frustratingly sparse. There were no clear suspects, the motive was unknown, and the murder weapon was not found at the scene. The lack of eyewitnesses was baffling. At a party with over 100 guests, it seemed impossible that no one had seen anything. Or perhaps they had, but fear or loyalty kept them silent. I began interviewing the guests, starting with those closest to Evelyn. Each interview painted a different picture of the night, but a common thread emerged. Evelyn had seemed anxious, constantly glancing over her shoulder, as if she was expecting someone or something. It was an odd behavior for someone supposedly at the peak of her career. As I delved deeper, I learned more about Evelyn's background. She was an enigma, a private person despite her public persona. Born into a modest family, her rise to fame was meteoric, but not without its challenges. She had made her share of enemies along the way: a director she had turned down, a co-star she had outshone, an ex-lover with a grudge. Hollywood was a small world, and grudges ran deep. The case was complex, and the more I uncovered, the more convoluted it became. Evelyn's life, it turned out, was a web of professional rivalries, personal vendettas, and secret affairs. Each revelation opened up new avenues of investigation, new potential motives, and suspects. But without concrete evidence, they were just theories, shadows in the dark. As the days passed, the pressure to solve the case increased. The media was relentless, spinning theories and rumors that ranged from the plausible to the absurd. The public clamored for justice for their fallen star, their interest fueled by the daily sensational headlines. But beneath the clamor and the speculation, the truth remained elusive. I pored over the evidence, looking for that one clue that would blow the case wide open. The forensic team worked tirelessly, analyzing every piece of evidence, but the breakthrough I desperately needed eluded us. It was like trying to piece together a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. The case of Evelyn St. Clair was more than just a murder investigation. It was a journey into the heart of Hollywood, a place where the line between reality and fiction was often blurred. As I delved deeper into the world of showbiz, I realized that I was not just chasing a killer. I was unraveling a mystery that lay at the very core of the city of stars, a mystery that was as enigmatic as Hollywood itself. The investigation was just beginning, and I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with twists and turns, with secrets waiting to be uncovered in the shadows. As days turned into weeks, the investigation into Evelyn St. Clair's shooting deepened, revealing layers of complexity that went beyond a simple act of violence. Hollywood, I realized, was a place where appearances could be deceiving, and the truth was often hidden behind a well-crafted facade. I started by tracing Evelyn's path to stardom, a journey that had begun in a small, nondescript town in the Midwest. Interviews with her family and childhood friends painted a picture of a determined, ambitious young woman, driven by a dream to make it big in Hollywood. But beneath her success lay a trail of sacrifices and broken relationships. Her ascent to fame was not just a story of talent and hard work, it was also a tale of the ruthless realities of the entertainment industry. The more I learned about her, the more I realized that Evelyn's life was a balancing act. She was constantly under pressure to maintain her image, to be the perfect starlet that the public adored. Yet, behind closed doors, she struggled with the weight of her fame. Her personal life was a tumultuous affair, marked by short-lived romances and fraught friendships. One of the key revelations came from a series of interviews with her closest colleagues. They spoke of her growing paranoia in the months leading up to the shooting. Evelyn believed that someone was out to sabotage her career, perhaps even harm her. She had received anonymous threats, unsettling letters that were dismissed by her management as the work of an overzealous fan. But Evelyn had been genuinely scared, a fact that she had hidden from the public eye. The investigation then led me to the darker corners of her life. I uncovered a bitter rivalry with a fellow actress, a feud that had started over a coveted role and escalated into a series of public spats and private confrontations. There was also a strained relationship with a prominent director, a man known for his temper and his vengeful nature. Evelyn had rejected his advances, a move that had reportedly infuriated him. As I pieced together the puzzle, a picture began to emerge of a woman trapped by her own fame. Evelyn St. Clair, the dazzling star, was also a woman embroiled in a web of intrigue, surrounded by individuals who might have had the motive to harm her. But motives alone were not enough. I needed evidence, a lead that could point me to the shooter. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A piece of overlooked evidence from the crime scene, a unique cigarette butt found near where Evelyn was shot. It was a rare brand, one favored by a select few in Hollywood. This seemingly insignificant clue became the first real lead in the case, a thread that, when pulled, could unravel the entire mystery. As I followed this lead, diving into the world of smoke-filled backroom deals and clandestine meetings, I realized that solving this case would require more than just detective work. It would require understanding the complexities of human nature, the jealousy, the fear, and the ambition that drove the people of Hollywood. Evelyn's shooting was not just a crime, it was a symptom of the darker side of fame, a side that was often hidden from the spotlight but was always present, lurking in the shadows. The mask was beginning to come off, revealing the true face of Hollywood, a place where dreams could be made or shattered, where every smile hid a secret, and every success had its price. The investigation was moving forward, but with each step, the danger grew, and the stakes got higher. The truth was out there, waiting to be found, and I was determined to find it, no matter what it took. As the investigation into Evelyn St. Clair's shooting progressed, I found myself delving deeper into the complex web of relationships and rivalries that defined Hollywood's social landscape. The city, with its glittering facade, was a tapestry of interconnected lives, where personal and professional boundaries often blurred. The rare cigarette butt had led me to a small circle of industry insiders, a clique known for their exclusive parties and their penchant for luxury. This elite group included some of the most powerful figures in Hollywood: producers, directors, and a few A-list actors. As I interviewed them, their responses were a mix of feigned ignorance and veiled caution. It was clear they were hiding something, but cracking their unified front was proving to be a difficult task. Meanwhile, the deeper I dug into Evelyn's life, the more I realized how many secrets she had. Her public persona was a carefully crafted image, maintained to protect not only her privacy, but also the illusions of her fans. In private, however, Evelyn was known to navigate the treacherous waters of Hollywood politics with a surprising astuteness. She had her own share of enemies, some hidden in the shadows of her glamorous life. One of the most revealing interviews was with Evelyn's former assistant, who, after much persuasion, opened up about the darker side of Evelyn's world. According to her, Evelyn had been involved in a secretive affair with a married studio executive, a relationship that had ended bitterly. This revelation added a new dimension to the case, suggesting a possible motive rooted in personal vendettas. The assistant also mentioned a series of anonymous threats that Evelyn had received. These were more serious than the ones her team had previously dismissed. They were specific, menacing, and increasingly frequent. Unfortunately, Evelyn had destroyed most of these letters, fearing they would tarnish her reputation if they became public. As I pieced together the fragmented stories and half-truths, a pattern began to emerge. Evelyn's life, it seemed, was a complex puzzle of alliances and enmities. She had navigated through a minefield of egos and expectations. The case was becoming more than just an investigation. It was a journey into the heart of Hollywood's darkness, a place where fame and fortune were both a blessing and a curse. With each step, I was getting closer to the truth, but with each step, the danger was becoming more real. The tangled webs of Hollywood were closing in, and I knew that unraveling them would require all my skills as a detective. But I was determined to find justice for Evelyn, no matter what secrets I had to uncover, no matter who I had to confront. The truth was out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. The deeper I delved into the investigation of Evelyn St. Clair's shooting, the more I began to understand the treacherous undercurrents of fame in Hollywood. It was a world where the spotlight that brought one to dizzying heights could just as swiftly cast one into the darkest shadows. As I continued to piece together the fragments of Evelyn's life, it became increasingly clear that her rise to fame had come at a great cost. Interviews with those who had known her before her success painted a picture of a young woman transformed by the industry. The once bright-eyed actress from the Midwest had become a seasoned player in the high-stakes game of Hollywood, her innocence eroded by the very world that celebrated her. Evelyn's struggle with fame was a common story in the city of stars. I learned from a veteran actor, who had seen many come and go, that the allure of fame could be intoxicating, but also isolating. Stars like Evelyn were surrounded by people yet often profoundly alone, their true selves hidden behind the roles they played on and off the screen. The pressure to maintain her image, to always be the dazzling star the public adored, had taken a toll on Evelyn. Her publicist, a seasoned player in the art of media manipulation, revealed that Evelyn had been increasingly reliant on alcohol and prescription drugs to cope with the stress. This dependence was a well-guarded secret, one that could have ruined her career if it had become public knowledge. As I sifted through the evidence, it became apparent that Evelyn's fame had made her a target. The threats she received, previously dismissed as the work of overzealous fans, took on a more sinister tone in this new light. They spoke of a deep-seated hatred, a desire to see her fall from grace. It was a reminder of the dark side of celebrity, where envy and obsession could drive individuals to extreme actions. The investigation also led me to the darker corners of Hollywood, where fame and fortune intersected with the criminal underworld. A confidential informant in the industry hinted at connections between certain high-profile figures and organized crime. This underworld was a shadowy realm where deals were made, and careers were built or destroyed at the whim of those who wielded true power behind the scenes. In this world, Evelyn's shooting was not just an act of violence, it was a message, a stark reminder of the price of fame. The more successful one became, the more one had to lose, and the more dangerous the game became. Evelyn had climbed to the top, but the higher she rose, the more precarious her position became. As I continued to unravel the mystery of her shooting, I realized that I was not just searching for a gunman, I was navigating the perilous landscape of fame itself. The case was a journey into the heart of Hollywood's darkness, a place where dreams and nightmares were indistinguishable, where the cost of fame could be one's very life. The investigation was far from over, and with each new revelation, the stakes grew higher. But I was determined to see it through, to uncover the truth behind Evelyn St. Clair's shooting. She had paid the ultimate price for her fame, and it was my duty to ensure that justice was served, no matter where the trail led. As the investigation into Evelyn St. Clair's shooting continued, I found myself delving deeper into the hidden aspects of her life, uncovering the shadows that lurked behind the spotlight. The glamour of Hollywood's golden era was a facade, masking a world where fame could be both a blessing and a curse. The breakthrough came when I discovered a series of threatening letters that Evelyn had secretly kept. These letters, filled with vitriolic hatred, offered a chilling glimpse into the dark side of her fame. They were not the ramblings of a fan, but the calculated threats of someone who knew her well, someone who moved in the same elite circles. As I pieced together the timeline, it became apparent that these threats had started shortly after Evelyn refused a role in a major film, a decision that had angered a powerful studio executive. This executive was known for his vindictive nature, and several sources confirmed that he had a history of holding grudges. The more I dug, the more I uncovered about the toxic environment that Evelyn had navigated, an environment where power plays and intimidation were commonplace. Evelyn's personal life, too, was fraught with complications. A clandestine relationship with a co-star, hidden from the public eye, had recently ended on a bitter note. This co-star, once a close confidant, had become distant and cold, adding another layer of tension to her already stressful life. The end of their affair had been messy, spilling over into their professional interactions. Amidst this tangled web of relationships, I uncovered a disturbing incident that had occurred weeks before the shooting. Evelyn had been followed home one night by an unknown vehicle. This incident had left her shaken, but she had dismissed it as a one-time occurrence. However, it now seemed like a sinister prelude to the shooting. The deeper I probed, the more I realized that Evelyn's life in the limelight was a precarious balancing act. Behind her dazzling smile and poised appearances, she was a woman constantly looking over her shoulder, aware of the envy and animosity she had inadvertently cultivated. As I continued my investigation, the facade of the Hollywood dream began to crumble, revealing a much more sinister reality. It was a place where ambition could drive people to extreme lengths, where the pursuit of fame and success could lead to dangerous liaisons and deadly consequences. The world of glitz and glamour was a mirage, and Evelyn had been caught in its treacherous hands. As the shadows behind the spotlight began to emerge, so did the realization that the key to solving her shooting lay in understanding the dark side of the very industry that had made her a star. The investigation was drawing me into uncharted territory, into a realm where fame was both the hunter and the hunted. Every new piece of evidence, every whispered confession, brought me closer to the truth, but also deeper into danger. In Hollywood, secrets were currency, and some were worth killing for. As I delved deeper into the shadows, I prepared myself for what was to come, knowing that the path to the truth would be fraught with peril. But for Evelyn, and for the justice she deserved, I was willing to walk that path, no matter where it led. The case of Evelyn St. Clair's shooting had taken a grim turn. Despite the best efforts of the doctors, her condition worsened, and she succumbed to her injuries. Hollywood was in mourning, and the pressure to solve the case intensified. Her death transformed the investigation. It was no longer just a search for a shooter, but a quest for a murderer. The news of her passing sent shockwaves through the industry. Memorials were held, and the media was abuzz with tributes and retrospectives of her life and career. But beneath the public display of grief, there was an undercurrent of fear and suspicion. The glamour of Hollywood had been irrevocably tarnished by the tragedy. As I revisited the case, the list of suspects and motives seemed to grow exponentially. The investigation had revealed a complex web of relationships, each with its own potential for conflict. The studio executive with a grudge, the jilted co-star, the powerful figures in the shadows, any one of them could have had a reason to want Evelyn out of the picture. But the case was stalling. Leads that once seemed promising were now leading to dead ends. Witnesses were hesitant to come forward, and those who did often provided contradictory or incomplete information. It was as if a veil of silence had descended over the industry, a collective unwillingness to reveal the darker truths lurking behind the silver screen. In this atmosphere of obfuscation, my investigations took me to the seedier side of Hollywood. The city's underbelly was a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour of the red carpet. Here, in the dimly lit bars and back alleys, I found whispers of a different side of Evelyn's life, a side known to only a few. Rumors of secret meetings, hushed-up scandals, and payoffs were rampant, painting a picture of a Hollywood far removed from the public eye. It was during this time that I encountered a figure who would change the course of the investigation. A retired journalist, once renowned for his coverage of Hollywood's dark secrets, reached out to me. He spoke of a conspiracy, a network of power and influence that protected its own at any cost. According to him, Evelyn had stumbled upon something she wasn't supposed to know, something that could have exposed the rot at the heart of the industry. This revelation was a breakthrough, but it came with its own dangers. As I continued my investigation, albeit with more caution, I realized that solving the case would require unconventional methods. The truth about Evelyn's death lay buried under layers of deceit and fear. To unearth it, I needed to dig deeper, to challenge the powers that sought to keep it hidden. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but I was committed to seeking justice for Evelyn. Her story was a stark reminder of the cost of fame in Hollywood, a world where glamour often masked grim realities. The investigation into her death had become a lone crusade against a system designed to protect its own at any cost. As I soldiered on, the last lead became more than just a clue. It was a symbol of the fight against a culture of silence and complicity. Evelyn's voice had been silenced, but I was determined to ensure that her story was heard, that the truth would not be buried along with her. The journey to uncover the reality behind her tragic end continued, a testament to the enduring pursuit of justice in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The investigation into Evelyn St. Clair's death had become a labyrinth with no clear exit. Each lead, every piece of evidence, seemed to dissolve into the complex tapestry of Hollywood's darkest corners. The disappearance of the key witness was a critical blow, leaving the case shrouded in ambiguity. Despite the mounting obstacles, my resolve to uncover the truth remained unshaken. However, the realities of the situation were becoming increasingly apparent. The case was mired in complexities that extended far beyond a simple murder investigation. It had unearthed a network of influence and corruption that was deeply entrenched in the Hollywood system. The absence of conclusive evidence and the vanishing of the witness left the case in a state of limbo. Officially, it remained open, but inactive. The leads had dried up, and the trail had gone cold. The pressure from my superiors to move on was relentless, and it was clear that the case was being slowly buried under the guise of bureaucratic red tape. As the days turned into weeks and then months, the fervor that had once surrounded the case faded. The media's attention shifted to new scandals and sensations, leaving Evelyn's story to become just another unsolved mystery in the annals of Hollywood's checkered history. The unresolved nature of the case weighed heavily on me. Evelyn's death had exposed the underbelly of an industry built on glamour and illusion. Her story was a stark reminder of the price paid by those who dared to challenge the status quo of power and privilege. It was a narrative that was all too common, yet rarely spoken of. In the quiet moments of reflection, I pondered the many facets of the case. Evelyn St. Clair, the dazzling star whose light was extinguished too soon, had become a symbol of the darker truths that lay hidden behind Hollywood's glittering facade. Her death had revealed the lengths to which individuals in positions of power would go to protect their interests. Years passed, and the case of Evelyn St. Clair remained an enigmatic chapter in my career. It was a case that had challenged my beliefs and tested my resolve. In my heart, I knew that the truth was out there, buried under layers of lies and silence. But the realities of the system in which I operated had imposed limitations that were hard to overcome. In retirement, the echoes of the case still haunted me. I often wondered about the different paths the investigation could have taken, the leads that might have been explored further. The lack of closure was a lingering frustration, a sense of unfinished business that stayed with me. Evelyn's story, with its unresolved echoes, was a testament to the complexities of seeking truth in a world where appearances were often deceiving and realities were carefully constructed. It was a reminder of the enduring struggle for justice in a system that often favored the powerful at the expense of the truth. As I looked back on the case, I realized that it was more than just an investigation. It was a journey into the heart of Hollywood's darkness, a place where fame and fortune were intertwined with danger and deceit. Evelyn's story was one that deserved to be told, a narrative that needed to be remembered, not as a mere footnote in Hollywood's history, but as a poignant reflection of the perils that lurk behind the spotlight. The case of Evelyn St. Clair remained open, a mystery with more questions than answers. But it was a case that had left an indelible mark, a reminder that in Hollywood, some stories never find their ending, like a play where the curtain never fully closes. Years have passed since the investigation into Evelyn St. Clair's untimely death. Now, in the quiet twilight of my retirement, her case still lingers in my mind, like a haunting melody that refuses to be silenced. Hollywood has continued to shine, its brilliance undimmed by the shadows of its past, but for me, it will always be tinged with a sense of unresolved mystery. Evelyn's story, with its abrupt and tragic end, remains a poignant reflection of the hidden costs of fame in Hollywood. Her talent and beauty had propelled her to the heights of stardom, but they had also made her vulnerable to the darker forces lurking behind the silver screen. As I sit in my study, surrounded by the files and notes that had consumed so much of my life, I can't help but feel a sense of incompleteness. The case had been a journey into a world where the lines between reality and illusion were often blurred, where the bright lights of the film industry cast long shadows. The echoes of what happened to Evelyn still resonate in the industry. Occasionally, a new piece of information, a whispered rumor, or a hinted confession, brings the case back into the limelight. But these moments are fleeting, and the mystery of her death remains, a puzzle with pieces forever missing. Looking back, I realize that the case of Evelyn St. Clair was more than just an investigation for me. It was a personal journey, a confrontation with the complex interplay of fame, power, and justice. I had ventured into the heart of Hollywood's darkness, seeking the truth in a place where truth was often a commodity to be traded and manipulated. In the quiet hours, I ponder the many lives touched by Evelyn's story, the aspiring actors and actresses who still flock to Hollywood in search of fame, the veterans of the industry who have seen its many faces, and the audience that remains captivated by the magic of the movies. Evelyn's legacy, in its own tragic way, serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us that behind the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, there are real human stories, some of which are marked by struggles and heartache. Her life, though cut short, was a testament to the human spirit's resilience and the enduring allure of the dream factory that is Hollywood.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the video. We highly recommend you watch the next video here. Oops. I'm waiting for you to click. Yes, you've clicked. Happy watching.